Mr. Acharya, does ADB has a special program to scale up energy access enterprises like Simpa? And if it does, how do you make sure that your recommendation by your program are credible and bankable to investors, not only within ADB, but to other impact investors outside?
Yeah. When you look at ADB's overarching goal, which is a poverty reduction, and then we all know very well that access to energy can contribute significantly in reducing that poverty. In that process, ADB has been doing energy access projects for a long time, but it has always been on a very ad hoc basis. So in 2008, we started this initiative called Energy for All. The main objective of that one is to increase ADB's own investment on access to energy, and then try to mainstream these energy access projects in ADB's regular operations so that we can support many more projects from ADB's investment. But at the same time, we also realize that we need to work with other partners. We also need to work with other organizations who are very much active in that area, so that at the end of the day, we all can come together, identify good projects, and then help them develop further. And then, in other words, pre-cooking those ideas and make them ready for investment, either from ADB side or also from other investors. And in that cleaning or pre-cooking process, we go through identifying their business model or developing their business model, even testing some of their ideas on the ground, and then looking at the institutional arrangements, cash flow analysis, and all those kind of things, which are very important and critical elements for whenever we are trying to do any energy access projects. So once these projects go through this process, we are much more in a confident position to bring it to the attention of our ADB's investment colleagues, and also to the other investors outside.
Mr. Acharya, do you believe in the saying that being poor is expensive? Do you think it's expensive?
Unfortunately, I agree with that statement, mainly because if you look at it also in the energy side of it, the amount of money they actually pay for their energy services is quite high. Oftentimes 20, 30, 40% of their actual income goes for purchasing energy or energy services. That puts them in a very difficult situation, circumstances where they have a limited income, and then huge amount of that one actually goes for energy services. Otherwise, that could have been used for other productive uses. So
exactly, these are the poor people who pay extensive costs for diesel and currency, which is much more expensive than being connected to grid like electricity. Now, you are leading a partnership called Energy for All Partnership, and I believe you took a pledge. When I say you, I mean Energy for All Partnership, that we will provide access to 100 million people by 2015. Where do you stand on that pledge? And please tell us more about the partnership.
When we started our Energy for All initiative in 2008, the main objective was to increase ADB's own investment. And then later on in 2009, we invited other stakeholders. We had a workshop in Manila, and then we asked them, what do you want? What do you want ADB to do? What are the real values or expectations that you have on ADB? And they basically said two things. One is, energy access is not really a new thing. It has been there for a very long time, but there are about 700 million people without access to electricity, and still about 1.9 billion people without access to, who are still dependent on biomass for cooking and heating purposes. Why is such a huge number of people is still deprived of these modern energy services? But at the same time, there are so many good models also already available. So instead of reinventing the wheel, their ADB should provide a platform where all these people, all these stakeholders, all the governments, private sector, NGOs, also bilateral agencies can come together and then share lessons learned and focus on developing of projects. So that was one kind of a request or demand from our stakeholders for ADB to provide that platform. That's one, and this is where we responded by establishing an Energy for All partnership. One message we also got at that time from our stakeholders is that this Energy for All partnership should not be another talk shop. It should really focus on actual projects. Okay. Because that's what really needed on the ground. And in order to see how well are we doing on that one, all the partnership members they come to kind of an agreement, or let's say we place that it should be 2000 by 2015, 100 million people, both for electricity and also for cleaner cooking and for heating services. And that was a very ambitious target. We intentionally wanted to be ambitious because if you all work together, it has to be ambitious. Otherwise, what's the point of working all together? And then we are actually doing it pretty good. We are now about 60 million already people. With the ADB assistance also from other different partners. This is not only for ADB, this one is for the whole partnership. We are already doing it about 60, and we are very hopeful that by 2015 we'll be able to reach that 100 million. The more important thing here is doing activities on the ground, and that's what we are really focusing on.
Your program is more regional focused. You do work in Pacific Islands, South Asia, Southeast Asia, but energy access problem, for example, in case of Simpa, it's a local problem. For example, in Pacific Islands, the issue is scaling up. You don't have enough demand to aggregate because the population of the islands is so small. In countries like India and Philippines, the issues are regulatory. IPP in India has to take like 10 licenses before they could produce power. How does your program plays with these local versus regional challenges?
The way we look at it is the issues are local, challenges are local, but there are so many regional similarities, and then there is also a lot to learn from one another. You took example of how to do things in the Pacific Island countries, where the nature and the issues are very different than what you can expect that in India. Mm-hmm. But on the other hand, for us, what is important is that we need to provide these services to these people regardless of where they are, whether they are in a small Pacific Island country or whether they are in India or in Nepal, in Bhutan or in Philippines or wherever. So this is where we, as a regional development bank, I think what we can do, or what we are doing is bringing the lessons learned from one country or from one region to another. India has a lot of challenges and issues, but at the same time, India also has a lot of good business model, and Simpa is one. So how can we replicate that model within India, and also how can we take that model in other countries? That's also one idea or one approach that we are taking. On the other hand, what we are also looking at is we organize events, workshops and seminars. That one is not just to bring people together, but this is where they can learn the experiences, the challenges of other countries, and how they have resolved that one. For instance, we just recently organized one event in Kathmandu in Nepal, where we invited people not only from Nepal but also from India and also from other regions, where they were able to come and share the lessons learned on how they have actually overcome those barriers, so that other countries can actually learn. So in short, this is where there is an advantage of working in a regional space, so that some of these issues and challenges can be handled much more effectively, much more efficiently, if we can bring in this regional dimension or regional element. But having said that, these issues and problems are local, so we need to handle that one locally. And every problem and issue is unique from that sense. In some cases, making an effort in policy through our policy dialogues or working with the regulatory agencies in the government, maybe we can make the most impact. In some cases, bringing in the investment to the projects makes the most impact. So we need to look at that one in totality. On one hand, on the other hand, be very specific to the problem that we are targeting.
Mr. Acharya, would you agree with me that in the past couple of years, billions of dollars have been spent by governments and multilateral development banks, including ADB, on either subsidies or providing feed-in tariff or grants and so on? So that's one part. Second, we have seen that solar prices have crashed more than 50% in the last couple of years, and we do see thousands of megawatts of grid-connected solar and wind being installed, including India. But having said all these things, the number which we get by International Energy Agency for people who don't have access to energy is still at 800 million. Why?
It's good that the prices of renewable energy, either it's a solar PV or wind, are going down, which is good. So now these renewable energy technologies are already becoming more and more competitive to the traditional sources of energy, which is good. But if you look at the developing countries in our region, in fact, this is also true for other regions as well. But in our Asia Pacific region, most of the developing countries, the electricity demand is not met by the supply, whatever they have. So any additional increase in the supply, that goes to meeting the demand of existing customers. So either for the industrial purposes or commercial purposes or existing residential customers as well, because sometimes in some countries they have this load shedding periodically to match that demand and supply. So those people who don't have access to electricity right now will continue remain unelectrified, because all the additional generation actually goes to serve these existing customers. Which is, let me finish it. The important point there is that, but that's also, it's also true that some of this additional generation is also being used to extend the grid and so on. But there are still many people don't have access to electricity given these changes.
Your program, I understand, I support these energy access enterprises, but your program cannot directly fund or invest in these projects, right? You belong to RSDD, which is more of a knowledge management platform. Now, what is the real value add, like taking the example of Simpa for Energy for All in this whole transaction process? What exact role did you play?
Our all the investments are usually done by our operations department, either from the private sector side, also from the public sector side. But the role that we usually play is to identify good business opportunities and good business models, pre-cooking those ideas, making them ready for investment, and then assist both the project developer and also with our operations colleague, both on the private sector and public sector side, to help them in the due diligence process. If there's any other feasibility studies or other studies that are required to complete their due diligence, or to just to finalize the overall business plan, we provide that support in that process. So what happens is that these are the kind of pre-investment activities which requires some financial assistance. Some requires some human resources to undertake these activities, and this is where we come in and then provide that services so that these projects are ready when it reaches to our operations colleagues. And to me, this is a real value addition, especially for energy access projects, because these are small scale in nature, are very human resource intensive. Oftentimes the project developers are also very small. They don't have these necessary resources to undertake all these activities. So this is where we can come in and add value to the project developers and also to our operation colleagues, so that they will be able to do more. And I'm very happy to hear, Ani, that he has done this excellent job in this Simpa, and then he's looking for some others. I really hope that, Ani, you do more.
Energy for All program is a partnership where you are partnering with PFAN, Celco, IAX, and there's so many partners, right? And through these partners, one of the objectives is to select entrepreneurs and social enterprises like Simpa, and then find mutual investors, ADB or outside. What's your message for SMEs, the small and medium enterprises and entrepreneurs? What should they do before they approach you or private sector guys?
The way we are providing our assistance and services is to assist as many as possible, which means that even though people who are in a very early stage, they can also approach us, and then we can take it forward from them. But what is very important for us is that there has to have some kind of uniqueness in their project. They cannot come here and then say that, oh, we need a $10 million grant and then I can electrify this many number of villages. So for us, that's not really any uniqueness on that one. There may have some good development outcome of that one, but there is no uniqueness on that one. They are just simply looking for grant assistance to do those projects. So what is important, especially for replicating and scaling it up, what is important is need to have some kind of innovative business model. Even though they cannot write it very well business plan, or they need some assistance in further refining their approaches, fix the implementation arrangement, do some calculations here and there. But as long as they have a unique idea, that they have, which is slightly different than what others are doing. I think this is that's the most critical part. So once we come across with those people with those ideas, then we can take it forward from them in defining their concept, and even piloting of those concepts, linking it with other investors, and working with the PFAN and IIX. And there are also other partners through which we can also link these project ideas with other potential investors.
So, Mr. Patil, do you agree with Mr. Acharya that the business plan, the pre-cooking, and the partners does play a role when you screen and invest in these projects? And secondly, I'm not sure, but ADB rates for the private sector investments are close to commercial, as they're not as low-cost financing as in the public sector. So why do people need ADB private sector investment, if there's more commercial rates?
No, see, on your first question, yes, we definitely value inputs which enable these entrepreneurs develop the business plan. Many of these entrepreneurs have wonderful ideas but do not have the resources to develop business plans in a way which will attract private sector investors. Okay. So any help from RSDD in that aspect, which enables these promoters to polish their business plans, is highly appreciated. Now, on the second aspect, we do think that if these companies come to us with a good business plan, then the private sector operations will look at these investments and will invest in.
But also on the other side, what is also important is that when we work with these, let's say, people who have these innovative ideas, we can also assist them what kind of projects our private sector departments are looking at, right, what kind of criteria they have. So you can also feed that information back to them and then see whether those projects are feasible or are viable, meeting those terms and conditions, and then what our private sector department is looking at. For me, we are kind of in between. So we understand what the project developers are looking at, we understand what our private sector department is looking at, and then we can facilitate that process.
So at least we have put Mr. Patil on record that he will look at the projects which you will screen it, and that he will take it seriously. At least we have that much commitment from him.
But I think we need to do our job best to screen those projects properly, so that when they reach us to any desks, I think these are much more polished.
And if I may add, Amit, to your earlier question about that the private sector operations are not, they're not concessional financing.
Right,
It's on terms with other commercial investors. However, someone like ADB brings a lot of value add to such companies. Okay. And this is not just in terms of financial resources, but also in terms of knowledge resources. So by having associated with ADB, Simpa not only just gets the money that we invest, but also knowledge resources from RSDD. Right. It helps them to diversify to other markets. It helps them connect with policymakers in different regions. And that is a big benefit to these young entrepreneurs. And that is one of the reasons why they prefer us.
Excellent. Thank you, gentlemen, for spending time with us. I believe we will do much more deals like this with PSOD and RSDD. Thank you.
Thank you.